Welcome to the Process Podcast.
From new agent to broker owner.
My name is Travis McClure. This is my co-host, Preston Guyton. Welcome to the Process Podcast. This is Travis McClure. And as always, my co-host, Preston Guyton. Preston, how you doing today, sir?
Good, man. Good.
Man, you feeling a little relaxed this week?
Yeah, because I don't have to run that marathon this Saturday. Saturday or Sunday?
The marathon is on, it made me think for a second, Saturday.
Yeah. Unfortunately, well, I was excited to run it, but I have a little old age groin issue. So trying to run too fast and too fat. So I pulled my groin.
Well, what I think happened, I always analyze Preston's fitness. I think you added too much run volume too fast.
Yeah.
And that will get you hurt. I've done it to myself even.
Yeah. Well, I was fine. And I went to Park City and I couldn't run in the snow and I can't run on a treadmill. So that was like 10 days. And yeah.
Cold weather running will do it.
I tried to, plan was to run 100 miles in February. And I think that was a little bit too much.
Well, I'm excited. I'm running the full. It's going to be my first time at that distance in about 2 years.
Yeah.
I missed marathon season last year because of military training. So yeah, I'm excited. I feel good. I texted you this morning. I wish it was today. Like I woke up, like I had a great night's sleep, woke up strong legs. I was like, man, I wish the marathon was today because Lord knows how I'll feel in 48 hours.
You feel good.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah.
Closed on your house, moved in.
Yeah, well, we're still
moving in.
Yeah. Monday.
You're going to be moving for 3 months.
Hopefully the next Monday wraps it up. We'll be officially, we've been like in the process of like selling a house and moving since pretty much November.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been we had to wait for a house to get built, but it's, I'm grateful. My wife is like amazing at like organization of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a long process.
But yeah, it was definitely a relaxing week. I mean, February was, between Toronto, 7th grade, chaperoning, 1 week trip in Florida, and then getting everything ready for the Connection Summit. So it was, last week was a lot different for sure.
Yeah. So let's dive into the Connection Summit event we'd been talking about for a couple of months, kind of leading up to it. We definitely want to recap that. Lots of great speakers, best of the best in the real estate industry. A very diverse room of people attending, from broker owners to agents, newer to business, to agents doing a ton of business. So let's break that down. Preston, what are your initial thoughts or how you feel the event went?
I think it went really good. It was not only the crowd of people in the room were very diverse, the speakers were very diverse in their businesses and what they've done and what they do, from the standpoint of how they run their businesses and how they got to where they were, where they are today. There was a lot of, there's a lot of difference there. So I think, from everybody a lot of the people that went, we got a lot of comment cards. There was a lot of good comments on what they thought how they thought it went. And, but overall, I think it went really well. I mean, first event, so nothing caught on fire.
So I told you I wanted to approach this from like a tactical standpoint. I call it an AAR, after action review. What's the top thing you think went well?
I mean, people showed up.
Yeah. It was a good room.
Yeah. It was probably about 180 at the beginning of the day. And it kind of, some people left throughout the day and people, agents are busy right now, right? So agents that are in this market, are not going to miss a showing. So,
right.
Because 2-3 months ago, they probably didn't have the amount of showings. But overall, it was good. I think, some things I want to change the next event we're going to do. But for a first event, props to Stunning and Brilliant. They did a great job of making me look good. So they did a really good job. And, everybody that helped us with it, Emily helped us a lot as well. So, but yeah, I think there's some things I would change, but for the most part, everybody that I talked to from the speaker standpoint and everything else, they're like, wow, this is, the sponsors as well. They thought it was a great event. And that's one thing when so there's two major stressors I had is like, are enough people going to show up? Well, we sold a lot of tickets, right? but also are there going to be enough people to where the sponsors are happy? And
Right.
I think all the sponsors were happy with the turnout and the business that they'll see from it. And it's business relationships, connections. I mean, the Connection Summit. That's the whole idea is when you're in business, the more connections you can make, the better. And you don't know what that one connection where it's going to take you to.
Mhm.
It could be a business partnership, it could be a future sale, it could be a future client or whatever. So you just never know.
Yeah, I always say rooms like that. I mean, yeah, you learn a lot from the speakers, but you come away with so much from the people like sitting at the round table with you, or
Yeah.
the people that you connect with there. It's the being in rooms like that are so valuable for so many reasons.
Yeah.
What's something you would do differently thinking back on the event?
I would have, the party the night before, I would open up to everybody that bought a ticket.
Mhm.
So that is something for the next event I'm going to do because and allow the sponsors to, sponsor that party as well because it'll give them an opportunity to interact with everybody that's at the event. So instead of just that being open to, the VIP tickets, I'll just open it up to everybody that buys a ticket. Um, so that would be one thing differently, and I think I would probably shorten the day a little bit. That was some of the comments I got, like, some people felt like it should be a 2-day event. I'm not doing a 2-day event, but,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm thinking that the party the night before where the sponsors could set up at that party and mingle and talk to people. I think it would give them a lot more opportunity to meet people. So doing that and then shortening the day, I think I'd probably do 9 to 4,
Yeah.
maybe 9 to 4:30 and do longer breaks, like have the like say we have 2 speakers in a row, and then we have a 10 or 15-minute break, and then have 2 more speakers,
Yeah.
and then have lunch, and, maybe have 2 speakers and just end it with closing everything out. So, that would be the big difference I think I would do, and it would give the sponsors more, maybe an hour in the morning where they could meet people as well that they didn't meet the night before, and maybe have a happy hour or something after. But that would be the main changes. I think people will stick around if they know a happy hour's coming. so,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think those are the big things. But other than that, man, there's really not a whole lot I would change. I would start marketing it sooner. So we're gonna start marketing the next one soon.
We'll get into the next one in a second, but I think you're spot on. In terms of the event itself was great, and I think the challenge in shortening the event, the only challenge there is you had such great like what speakers would. I'm not saying give me a list, but I'm saying that it'd be hard. Like you'd have to not have some of the people you had speak,
Yeah, it
right?
would just be one. I think it would be one less spot, right? It would just be
Yeah.
one, and the day probably wouldn't be that much shorter. I think it would just make it feel shorter by,
Hmm.
um, maybe we don't need an hour and 10 minutes for lunch. I mean, I think that's something we could potentially do is maybe shorten the lunchtime.
Yeah.
Um, but I think breaking it up and giving those dedicated breaks would probably help for sure.
Yeah, because realtors, especially at an event like that, they're going to step out, check their phone, give a client a call back, stuff like that. So yeah, I think that would be a better format for that.
Yeah, but I think we'd still have. I mean, we'd probably still have about the same amount, 8 speakers. Um, you can't really shorten the amount of time I mean, I guess we could do that as well, but I don't know. 30 minutes. I mean, 30 minutes is a decent amount of time for a speaker. So, because it's if you do 45 minutes, you really almost have to do 2 days. And 2 days is like you're already, drinking from a fire hose with the people that were up there. If it
Yeah.
was 2 days, it would even be, a lot of times those are exhausting because you're taking in so much information,
Hmm.
for 2 days straight. So, um, yeah, I think it would start at 9, probably end at 4:30. So it wouldn't shorten it too much. But that's probably the major change. It's really not that major of a change. I'm sitting
No,
here in my head, I'm like,
just
it's really
format.
not shortening. So I think it's just breaking it out differently, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the head on now. I think overall it went really well. Even like the speaker lineup, like the stuff they hit on was like from one speaker to the next. It wasn't like you were hearing the same thing over and over again, you
No, that
know?
was that was planned. I mean, I knew, the people that I was bringing on, I knew what they were going to talk about. or I knew their background. Like, that was like Sammy Knight. I mean, he was amazing.
Yeah.
People loved hearing him speak, and he, what he shared and change was a big part of what he talked about. Um,
He's so good. Like, I
yeah,
feel like he doesn't script any of that. He just goes up there and he's just himself up there. You know what I
no,
mean?
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, and he just talks about, his life and what he's been through and what he's done and what he's accomplished, which is amazing what he's done and accomplished. But just a great, I mean, all the speakers, just great people. Um,
I
been
saw agents walking around here this morning with Sammy's book.
Yeah,
A couple
yeah,
agents had
yeah.
had his book like
I
in
meant
their
to send him that, so I put
yeah.
his book, and I actually bought like 10 copies of his book, and I have a couple more I'm gonna bring in, but I put like 4 up at the front for people. I meant to take a picture of it and send it to him. I
What
did take a picture, I just didn't send it to him. I'm about to now.
what's the title of his book?
Behind the Gate, Behind
Yeah.
the Gates,
Yeah,
Behind the Gate.
behind the gate. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he wasn't trying to sell. He just mentioned, hey, I wrote these stories, about my
Yeah,
life and
just
stuff like
really,
that.
it's like when you read it, it's pretty neat. It's stories of his life, and it's
Mhm.
like you could, especially when you hear him, you could, almost have a Sammy voice reading it. So
Yeah, he's
yeah.
got a great voice, and he's just super genuine,
Oh
just like
yeah.
good human being.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's funny. It's a story about Sammy. One, I shared it, he accepted it within an hour.
yeah.
But two, his flight was canceled. So he ended up driving from Memphis
Oh my
to
gosh.
here. Yeah. And he called me on the way home and he just said, thank you. And it was a great event. He's like, you should really take this event on the road. He goes, the Connection Summit is a good name and something that people would want to, potentially want to do in their own market. So I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to do a bunch of events all year, but um, that's just how he is,
Yeah.
Instead of saying, hey, I can't make it in, he drives 12. However, Memphis is far. Like Memphis is the other side of Tennessee. And I know to get to Nashville is like 8 hours. So
Yeah.
I don't even know how far Memphis is.
That's a guy who's committed
10. Yeah.
right there.
It just shows you, how he is. So
Yeah. So you talk next event. What do you got in mind, man? What's the next event? Like, I don't even know the details here.
I don't even really have the details. I just text Sarah this morning. I'm like, hey, I think I want to do another event in the fall. Will not be at the Marriott. The Marriott, it was great. It was great
Mhm.
there, but there's a new place that's opened up. I'm checking on the details now. That's oceanfront.
Mhm.
Capacity is about 200, so it will be. I feel like after we had this event, all the stuff we're going to share from it, I feel like we'll be able to sell that one out. So it will be a situation where there'll be limited tickets. It won't be because we could easily have 300 or 400 people at Marriott. Um, we sold between sold and sponsor tickets. We had about 220. We had probably 30 or 40 people that didn't show up because
Mhm.
of different reasons. But this one will be limited, and I don't even know if we could get 200 in the space. I can't really say what the space is yet because I haven't talked to them. But it'll be a really cool event location, about 2 miles from the Marriott, so still oceanfront residential area. So it'll be really, if we have it there, it'll be really good.
If you think about it, I said it. You'd mentioned it a little bit ago, and I said, you think about the real estate market, the way it's been the last few years. We just had an event, say February, and you have another one in, let's just say October.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. September, October.
Yeah, 6 months from now or 8 months from now, the real estate market could be completely
Yeah,
different. You
I
know what I
know.
mean? So it's like the conversations that were had last week that are going to be had in October could be very different
Yeah,
conversations.
and the
Right?
one thing too, like in the one in the fall, because I had a couple of people tell me, like even that came from out of town, they're like, "Hey, we really wanted to hear you speak," and I'm like, I wanted to speak, but brought in too many speakers, so I didn't want to keep people there until
You should next
six.
time.
No, I am, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So I'm going to speak about, one will be Easy Home Search will be launched a new website, so I'll be able to share a lot of that stuff. Obviously, not going
Hmm.
to be like a sales speech, but
Right.
just talk about some of the things we're seeing because the amount of lead gen we see and the amount of just activity we see is so much more than a lot of other, I would say probably 99.9% of other companies. So we get to see what's happening within, those searches and everything else. So I'll definitely speak, for a dedicated amount of time, 30 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, and that's good, like valuable data. It's tools that agents can leave. That data, that information, they're tools that agents can even if they're not an easy home search client or customer, they can go back and apply that to their own lead generation.
Yeah, I mean,
You
we'll be
know?
able to share what we're seeing and how we're building it out and response rates we're seeing and just search volume, people returning to the site and all those things.
Yeah.
That's the big thing talked about right now is the cost per lead across the country is higher because the search volume's lower. So people are still trying to buy leads, but the actual online search volume's down, which is rightfully so. It's not as hot of a market as it was this time last year. But for easy home search, where traffic's up 300% from last year. So it just depends on what you do and how you're doing it. Like a majority of our traffic, 85% is organic and direct. So it's not paid traffic.
Yeah. It's interesting too. Obviously, my role has shifted in the last few months where I'm working closely day in and day out with our inside sales agents, our ISA team. And you talk about traffic being up. I mean, there's definitely people on websites. There's definitely people looking at stuff, and the objections that you get. And I don't view them as rejection, right? To me, we've done a whole episode on like the difference between objection and rejection. And the objections you get, yeah, you're still hearing the interest rate stuff. But I go back and I always like looking at like the ones we've converted as a team. I go back and kind of number one, I'm looking to make sure, hey, the agent reach out to them. Like number one, the person we've connected to an agent, did they reach out to them? I make sure of that. But I like to go back and listen to some of the conversations, like the objections they were giving 90 days ago.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are like interest rates. And all of a sudden, like they've realized it is what it is. Like, hey, we want to make this move, or we're ready to make this move. So I think where you had a lot of people kind of sitting on the fence around a lot of those objections, they're starting to make moves now.
Yeah, it's funny. We, Josh, I think it was Josh or Nick shared. I think it was Nick shared what Brendan said on the one. Did you read that? So Brendan had a client. So he's paying for Easy Premium leads.
Okay.
And he had one Easy Premium lead that came in. So Easy Premium go direct to the agents. They skip our ISA team. They're, the agents pay for those and they're paid on their SOI. But 90 days ago or 60 days ago, that person said, not interested.
Right.
Don't want to talk, or not interested right now, whatever, just looking. And now he's listing their house and actually helping them buy a property.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just imagine if he gave up on that person, because they're just looking. But same thing, like if you go to a car lot and to a store or whatever, you're just looking until you realize, hey, I can't find what I want on my own. So you ask somebody. And that's I'm sure now in the role you've been in, that's probably the majority objection that you receive is, we're just looking, which is really not.
Yeah, just looking is an objection. It's not a reject. The only thing that's rejection to me is someone calls me a cuss word and hangs up the phone.
Yeah.
All right, that person does not want to talk about real estate, right?
Exactly.
Everything else is an objection.
Yeah.
Like just looking an objection. Okay, so they're not ready right now.
Yeah.
I translate that as you're not ready right this second, but they will be at some point. Waiting for interest rates. Okay, well, an interest rate's important to you, but so it's not right now, but it's going to be soon because interest rates never stay the same.
Yeah.
Right. Like things like that. And if you have that mindset, your calls will go really well. But it makes me think of this, just some conversations I had at Connection Summit and things I've seen in different agents' businesses is even in a market like this, we talked about it a year ago when no one could find inventory, right? You had all these buyers, but you had no inventory. What was the most important skill you could have? Creating inventory.
Yeah.
Even in the market right now, where there's a good amount of inventory and you have these buyers who are struggling to get qualified at interest rates, that kind of stuff. Think about it. The best skill you can have in any market is being able to generate inventory.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you can find the people, like in the story of Brendan's perfect. They have a house to sell.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people with a ton of equity in their home right now. People with a ton of equity in their home right now typically aren't as concerned with just interest rates because they can either turn around and buy cash, or it's mostly cash or a pretty substantial down payment, right? It absorbs some of that impact of the high interest rate. So it just goes to the fact, like, you have to look at sources in your business that you can generate listings. You know what I mean? Some way, somehow, like past clients. I know there's an agent here who does a good amount of research. He does the Easy CMA that Bill Pipes taught us about. He does that process. He looks in neighborhoods and he looks for people who've owned their home long enough, and he does the research to find, okay, they have a ton of equity in their house, right? You could do that through tax records, figure out how long they've been there and that kind of stuff. And he calls them up.
Yeah.
He says, hey, this is what your house is worth. This is what it says you owe on it. Right. And it's John in our company, John Watson. He runs a really successful listing portion of his business just with that type of approach,
Yeah.
and you got to find what that is. Cause that's still, those are the best
Find the
buyers
one.
to have. Yeah.
Find the one. Focus on that one, and then add a second one after you get good at that first one, and
Mhm.
continue to grow your business. And a lot of those conversations I've heard agents talk about too. That it was another easy premium lead they were talking about. And because the reason why I say that, because I always ask them, like, how are the leads?
Mhm.
How's everything going?
Yeah.
It was one that it was a lady, which we talked about on a previous episode, that she bought a house in the farm about 2 years ago. It really was not what she wanted.
Yeah.
It was smaller than she really needed. She has kids, and they're kind of crammed in there now. And the good part with that is, although she rushed to buy that, we haven't seen a huge decline at all in prices. I mean, if you
Mhm.
look at, like, either from even from, like, Myrtle Beach compared to the nation is top, I think it was top 5 or 6 in the appreciation of homes between 2021 December and 2022.
Mhm.
So for her, she could still, although it wasn't exactly what she wanted and she had to rush and buy it, there's still enough demand there where she's going to be able to sell that house and make good money and then buy something else. Where some markets, I mean, there's just a big rush across the country to move to the Southeast.
Yeah.
When I look at it, it's, the top 10. I was reviewing it with a bank that I was working with on easy home search stuff. And they just wanted to see, like, where are the people coming from?
Mhm.
And it's all like the top 10, California was at 9 or 10 based on search volume. And then the majority of them were Northeast, and, North Carolina was one as well. Florida was one. But there's a big rush for people to move to the Southeast,
Yep.
and I don't think that will stop or slow down.
No, yeah, we're definitely fortunate, and I know we have our audiences that all over the place. This market specifically, we're very fortunate that we have that situation where our home prices are lower typically than where people sell and move from.
Yeah,
Like they sold for a lot more and they're buying for a lot less
especially
here
when you
still.
look at coastal. I mean,
Yeah.
even some of the markets in Florida, like my brother-in-law and sister-in-law were buying a place in Florida,
Mhm.
and some of the so they were looking at some of the oceanfront properties, and they were 18, 19, 20 million.
Yeah.
You don't see those numbers here.
No.
You don't get remotely close to those numbers. Like, and it's total different, like, what they were looking at. They weren't looking at those houses that we were just talking about. We went My wife and I and kids went to Rosemary Beach last year as well, and some of the houses that just thought, just based on looking at 'em, construction, I thought they'd be, 5 million. They're like 18, 20
Yeah.
million. I'm like, "What is going on here?" And then that same house on the ocean in our market would be 3 or 4 million.
Right.
So it's still a place where, you could come in, especially somebody looking at, like, oceanfront vacation rental type property, condos. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of unoccupied properties available as well.
Yep. Yeah. So I think the key point in all that is you got to find that. You know what I mean? Like I think it's still important to generate a list. Like you should have different pillars in your lead generation, right? Like easy home search for an agent in our company is one,
Yeah.
and I use, like you talk about John and Brendan are great agents. They have other pillars where they generate listing business and stuff from as well that kind of feed each other. But like the people selling their home, they got to move somewhere,
Yeah.
and they're the best
100%.
buy, and they're the right now, in my opinion, in just any market, they're the best buyers to have,
Yeah, for sure.
right? I mean, right now they have the least worries about an interest rate because they have equity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the market is, I mean, we've seen it here. Our last month at Palms Realty was amazing. Biggest month we've ever had. So it should be going into the spring. It should continue. We should continue to see the demand coming. I heard somebody a couple of days ago say that they their offer was accepted
Hmm.
on a property that was in a price point that there's not many properties in that price. It was like 190, 185, something like that.
Yeah.
10 offers.
Yeah. Well, we had this talk a couple weeks ago in a mastermind, and I'm talking. I know the Myrtle Beach market. I don't know markets outside of Myrtle Beach.
Well,
This is my market.
there's a lot of them that are seeing that, like, on our,
Yeah.
the good thing is, like, Monday night, we have a call. It used to be Sunday night, but Monday
Hmm.
night now, with all the Chapalac elite people that are coach with John, directly coach with John.
Right.
And a lot of people were seeing those same conditions
Yeah.
where no inventory. As soon as the house goes on the market, there's 10 multiple offers.
In a particular neighborhood or niche in their market, right? You know what I'm
Yeah, a
saying?
lot of them, like, Deborah was sharing in Nashville what they've seen. It's just back to crazy land again.
Good.
Um, and
I think now you have pent up demand too.
well,
Most
it's
people are
very
waiting.
hard to, it's very wearing on the broker side because it's like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's like 1, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Everything was collapsing 5, 6 months, and then all of a sudden it's back to the races again. What's the middle of summer going to look like? So
Mhm.
I think a lot of people are hoping we get back to just kind of a leveling market instead of one that's like ripping fast ahead and then or like dropping off the face of the earth.
I
So
almost think like we won't see that. I think like, like the experience, if you're an agent, think about if you've been in this business 2 years or 3 years,
yeah,
all you've experienced is the roller coaster, right? You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
Like,
or 10 years if you look at it, all you've
yeah,
experienced is a incline.
right.
So it's yeah, it's going to, it's all around news and everything else,
Sure.
interest rates, and there's just so much that it's so volatile, and I think it will be for a while.
Well, typically, like historically, so next year we go into an election year, right?
Mhm.
So historically, don't interest rates typically drop in an election year?
They do, and not a whole lot happens. Like there's not really a whole lot of new bills or things passed that. So election years are typically pretty even kill, but
Mhm.
who knows?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
just pay attention to what's going on in your market, and then you could share because the thing is, people looking for real estate, they don't understand it like a realtor does
Yeah.
because they're not in it every day. So the
Mhm.
things that you assume that you think they may know, a lot of times they don't.
The other thing I think is important too, like for your particular market, I know Myrtle Beach is like this very much so. You said it like there are micro markets within your market. What I mean by that, there's certain buildings where there's no
Oh yeah,
inventory available right now. And there's other neighborhoods where a builder might be building and there's like 20 houses available right
yeah,
now. So if you're taking a listing in those two different areas, like, yeah, you can be a little aggressive on price because you're probably going to get a bunch of offers in that building with no inventory, right? Stuff usually hits the market and sells fast
yep,
versus the neighborhood that has 20 homes already on the market. You got to set your client up for like, hey, we need to price this thing very strategically to get it sold,
yep,
right? So I think, you think about, I think there's micro markets within the market that number one as a realtor, you got to pay attention to, and you got to be able to explain that to your client to manage their expectations,
yep.
buyer or seller.
Yeah, and the same thing. There's across the country with all the people we have in Jet Black Digital and all the people I speak to, there's not one market that's the same. Like there's some
Right.
people I speak to that I thought their market were going to be busy, and they're like, "Hey, we got new construction houses that are just sitting on the market
Hmm.
not selling." The markets you would think they were busy, but they're just not. They're not seeing the amount of activity that they were. I mean, nobody's seeing the amount of activity. One, we're comparing this year or last year to the best years ever in real
Right.
estate. So that's one thing you got to think about. Like you almost got to go back 20 years and just take the average. And that's really what you need to compare. And even right now, we're above those numbers. And
Well,
obviously, the price point, most agents are making more money per house, per transaction than they ever have. Well, all of them are.
it's,
You know, that
it's funny you say 20 years though. If you went back 20 years, the market we're in right now is substantially better than the market that was dealt with in the early 2000s when there was a
yeah, I mean, it
recession and a
was, see,
dip.
there was a
Yeah.
there was a dot-com bubble.
Yeah.
So that was like 2000, 2001, 2003. It picked back up 2003, 2004. And then everybody knows what happened in 2006, 7, 8.
Right.
But yeah, you take that into account, like the averages over the 20 years, which are the peak, at the best it's ever been.
Hmm.
And then you look at, some of those times in 7, 8, 9, worst it's ever been. So
Right.
you take that average, and those are the averages you need to look at. People are so quick to let's compare to 2000, 2001, 2002, which
Hmm.
even 2002, like commission volume, like if you compared it to 2019, it was like billions, like 20 billion, $30 billion more in total commission volume. So
Right.
those are the things you need to think about when you start comparing, compare to this year to last year to year before.
Yeah. It's hard because I think as a society too, we're so conditioned to short term thinking. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to like, but you're 1,000% right. You have to look at the grand scheme of, I think, 20 years worth of data. If you analyze it that way, like times right now aren't that bad in the real estate world.
No,
You know what I mean?
no, they're not.
But Preston, got anything else for the episode this week?
No, I mean, we recap of Connection Summit went down a couple of different rabbit holes, but
As we always do.
as we always do. No, I mean, look forward to sharing more details on. It's not 100% that I'm doing a fall event, but I'd say it's above 50%. So, and I'll have to make that decision within the next month because I need more time to advertise it. Like there's some people that said they didn't see anything on it, but sometimes I find that hard to believe because we were sharing it everywhere.
Yeah.
But I'll make that decision in the next 30 days. And, you know, if we do have it, it'll be late September, or October, somewhere in that range.
All right. So look forward to what we're going to call it. Connection Summit 2, Connection Summit Fall.
I don't know.
We don't have a name yet.
Yeah, the Connection Summit.
The next Connection Summit. Guys.
The Connection Summit 2.0.
Yeah, 2.0. I like that. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great week. And we will connect with you soon.
See ya.